Hey guys, it's Alec Torelli, and welcome to the hand of the day. Today's hand comes from Rudy, who's playing a 1-2 cash game at his local casino. He finds himself with 300 bucks. He's in second position, and under the gun opens to 12, which is a huge raise. He makes it 6x from under the gun, which automatically puts him in a tough spot. I mean, he has 7 people to act behind him, and even though he has a strong hand like 2 10s, the 6x open from under the gun makes our hand shrink up a little bit. So Rudy opts to just call, which I definitely think is the correct play here. We want to see what goes on behind us. And we're also a little intimidated that our opponent could have a better hand like jacks to raises. So calling here is definitely the play. We get 2 other callers, and we go 4 ways to the flop. The flop comes 6-5 deuce with 2 clubs. And our under the gun player who raised preflop checks, and I don't necessarily think that means weakness, because I think he should be checking here with a decent amount of hands. He should be checking maybe with flush draws, also with overpairs, with sets, even if he has those. So I don't necessarily think that means weakness, but most of the time it means he doesn't have anything, because most players here will bet when they have a strong hand. So now that puts it on us, and I think this is a good spot to bet here. I don't think that people are going to raise us with bluffs that often, and I don't think we're gonna lose our equity in the pot by betting. I don't think we're gonna get outplayed too often here. Someone taking advantage of us and raising us and putting in a really tough spot, unless they actually have a hand that smashed it. It's just not a flop where people do that often, and we could have smashed the flop too. I mean, we called a raise in second position, a 6x open. We have to have something. So I would just go ahead and lead out here and try and take the pot down. You don't really want it to go check behind you. You don't really want one of the other players to bet behind you and then someone else call, and now you're out of position. Overcalling is like a really tough spot to play, and you don't really want to be out of position here without the lead in the hand. So I think betting here is definitely the play. You really want to take down the pot on the flop, and I would be betting like $34, $35, something like that, like 3/4 the pot, because just the fact that you bet means that you have some equity. So you should be betting a little bigger here too. We go ahead and check, which I think is a little too passive here, man, to be honest, but it's okay. Sometimes you check, whatever. Play the hand anyway. The guy to our left now bets $20, so he makes a really small bet, which is tricky because even though the bet is small, we're still out of position. So like, he has tempo and control in the hand, and he could decide which cards he wants to play on the turn in the river, and maybe bluff with those or not bluff with those, and so we just don't know where we're at in the hand despite his bet size, so it's really, really tough. Now, what makes it worse is the other guy calls the bet, so now we have 2 people behind us, and we're out of position with 10s. There's pretty much no good turn cards except a 10, because we don't know if we're beat already, we don't know if one of them has jacks or something, we don't know if they have a set or 2 pair, or we don't know what cards necessarily hurt our hand. Do they have 7-8 and a 9 hurts us? Do they have a flush draw? Maybe they have a queen high flush draw and an offsuit queen comes. I mean, we just don't know what cards we even want, and our hand is super vulnerable against 4 cards out of position. So at this point, I mean, even though I have the best hand most of the time, I might just even like consider folding, just because we can't really win money in this situation. But as crazy as that sounds, it gives more credence to why I would just bet initially and take control of the pot, because now you're in a really tough spot. We go ahead and check raise to 55. So if you're gonna raise here, I think you should make it a little bigger. I don't think that your opponents are ever gonna fold, because they have equity in the pot. Like, the guy that called, at least in position, has equity in the pot. He's never gonna fold to your raise if he has a draw. And now you're playing out of position against 1 or 2 players that called your check raise. The pot's inflated, so you did what you don't want to do. You inflated the pot out of position with a really vulnerable hand, and you don't know where you're at. You don't know what cards are good to come. It's much better just to bet out in the beginning and keep the pot smaller and get all the same information you need. So I don't really like check raising here. It just puts you in such a tough spot to play against, and now your opponents could play back at you and outplay you with a flush draw or something like that. So it just leaves too many doors open for them to take advantage of your weak hand here. So we go ahead and check raise here to 55. The first opponent who bet out 20 now jams for nearly 200, and the second guy calls. So now we have a clear fold. I mean, we're up against 4 cards that definitely smashed it. I mean, one of them should have a set or 2 pair, and the other guy should have a monster draw, and we just can't really justify calling here. I just don't think we could call here at all, ever, and you have a clear fold. But the key is that you put yourself in the spot where you risked more money than you needed to by checking the flop instead of betting, and that was really where the error came in the hand, in my opinion. Had I check raised and one guy shoved, now you're kind of in a spot where you have to call because the pot's so big and he might have a draw and you're forced to gamble with him, even though you don't love it. So even if this pot was heads up, it's still just too vulnerable of a spot to check raise, unless your opponents are really, really crazy, you have some specific read on them. But in a full ring cash game with unknown opponents like we have in this situation here, you're much better off just leading the flop. And anyway, we went on and folded, which, congrats, Rudy, that definitely is the correct play. You played it well in that spot for sure. And one of our opponents ended up having 4-3 for the nut straight, which he shouldn't have that loose of a hand. That's a little too loose pre-flop for a 6x open. But more props to you for knowing you were beat here. And the other guy had ace-5 for a massive flush draw. Board runs out, the straight ends up holding, and we lose a pot. And I think it's easy to go on here and just think, well, we got away from a strong hand, no harm done, when in reality I think we made a couple big blind mistake here that could have saved us some money. So I hope you took something away. I hope you liked the hand of the day. If you want more of these videos, you want to see more hands of the day, stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, click right here, and I will see you guys next time. Cheers.